And he's looking for Charles C. Rich's property, and he told me, he said, I found that down there, and he understood I owned that down there, and I said, yeah. And he told me about it. I didn't even know it was down there. It was up there covered up with clapboard and a house built around it and everything, and been that way for 100 years and over. And I didn't know there was a log cabin inside that thing, a 2-story. I'd been in there playing with that other kid when he was there. I used to mow the yard there and everything when my uncle bought it back in 46 or 7. And then he got to tell me all about that and all about this out here. I think this here, Winchester. Is that his name's Stephen, or
yeah,
he owned this place.
Stephen.
And he tell me about this here other guy out there. Can't think of what his name was right now. It's right on the end of my tongue. Anyway, I said something to Dad about it. He said, well, I knew he died, but I didn't know where it was at. I said, yeah, he died right over here. I said, he's in the battle down on Crooked River. And I was reading in that book I've got about it. And
that was David W. Patton.
Left far away, yeah, Patton, yeah, David Patton. And they left far west about 1 o'clock at night. And they walked clear to Crooked River. I don't know how many miles that would have been. It'd be 4 miles down to Marble and on down. And they got down there about the time the sun was coming up over here, just pretty bright. I don't know what day of the year it was, but anyway, there, according to what I read, David Patton was right there where that sun was hitting him, but he couldn't see these other guys very good. But they could see him, and that's where they shot him at. He got wounded pretty bad. They got him out there in a wagon and tried to get him to far west, and they didn't think he was going to make it, so this whole road went back through here and up through there. I had come on out through here at one time, and that's where they hauled him back out through here whenever he died, and took him up there and buried him up there far west.
Oh.
And he was a lieutenant, and Charles C. Rich was too. And Charles C. Rich took his place. And he was down there, and then he went there to Nauvoo, and then he went there on, he found the San Benito, California. They named that, he founded that, Charles C. Rich did.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, that's the way I read it now. And so that's about all I know to tell you.
It's kind of interesting, Junior, that you own two pieces of property.
Both places, yeah.
The Rich cabin and the Winchester place.
I didn't even know I had it.
Didn't know you had it.
Well, I knew I knew what was on my abstract, but I didn't know who it was, you know, or nothing. I found out about all that.
Steve Winchester here. So this was the site of his old, the old cabin that was there. Where did the old road run? Do you know where the 1840s road, the old road, used to run back in those days?
No, not exactly. Now
he talks
I
about.
don't know whether there's one by here or not, but there's one went down here, maybe about where this one is now.
That was the guy.
And back over there.
Oh, he bought it.
And then right up here at about the middle of that hedgerow up in here where that there Stephen or whatever.
Winchester.
Yeah.
So that would be in here? It ran somewhere in here?
Stephen,
these three are Winchesters.
Yeah. Well, it'd be about, I'd say right in there, about right in there, right there. It would have been right back down through here.
That would have been near the old cabin site.
This would be the road. Is that a road there or a creek, you reckon, runs around there? I'd say that's a creek.
Yeah, it's a creek.
That'd be the line. I'd say along about right there where Stephen Winchester. I'd say right in there about where the end of Stephen right there. Right straight on down south where that road was, right down here, and then come around this way.
Because I believe the Winchester cabin, wasn't it not right here in the corner, wasn't it?
The cabin? Well, I you got the pencil there. I can put your little dot right there about where. Now that'd be the hedgerow, wouldn't it? Right through there. Right in here would be my house. Now this is what Bart bought in here. All this Stephen Winchester. It's got to be right up there in that corner, right up in there.
So that's right in there is where
That's where this here.
the Winchester cabin and where
Yeah.
David
Is
Patton.
the whole foundation pushed out of there in the fence row, or is there some of the
I
foundation?
really don't know. I don't know much about any of that.
And the road would have ran right in front of it.
It run right on down through here some way.
And along that
But there
hedge
was one
right
come
there.
on out through here too. And so they've had to come in. They probably come up Crooked River, right up to this road here. Then went over here and up here. Then they went on out through here and went on up D here in far west. Would be according to Mike Riggs now, that's what he told me.
Yeah.
And when Junior
You
tore
know-
up the ground out
Did you-
there where
have
he
you ever
farmed
met-
it, he
did
used
you
to
ever
find
meet-
pieces of shards of dinner
Oh,
and
where it
stuff
was,
there.
I don't-
I don't know where he stood.
Papers and stuff and his pamphlets and
What's his name?
Mike Riggs.
He worked for the church, or
I
I don't know who he
get away
was.
from more in this story.
Yeah.
And you said that he dug up a lot of old.
No, yeah, when Junior would farm that ground out there around where the cabin was, there'd be shards and pieces of stuff.
How long ago was that? Years ago?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
probably about
it's been a long
I
time
don't know
ago.
when he first
Well, I
started
bought it
farming,
back
I
in
don't know.
'55.
So deep down inside, that stuff's probably still in the ground.
It probably could be some of it's still in there and hasn't been farmed until these guys.
do you remember how big a piece of the foundation was there? Was it just stones, or was it big
I
stones?
don't know. I can't say if there's even a foundation there. I thought that it had to have been rocks or
Rocks,
something
rock
there.
foundation.
And I was thinking there was an old cellar there. Now I'm not sure about that, or a well, or anything like that, because I didn't even own it at that time.
Oh.
I was renting it.
Okay.
I rented it a year or two before I bought it. And I just farmed around this thing all the time. And this guy that I was renting it from, he got this caterpillar in there and just pushed all this off down in there. And so I could farm right on over top of all that, and I did. I know it's good black dirt, and it all grew up in wild onions all the time. And
Oh, from the house being there?
yeah, all that area up on top of there, it's good black dirt there. Some of the best dirt in Caldwell County, Alan Gentry says Grundy.
Oh, really?
Grundy soil,
Huh.
right there in that corner. So you've got some of that over there.
How big a piece was that?
Well, it's not very big. Probably, I don't know. It might be a half acre, an acre up there on top of that hill. Alan said that's the best dirt there is. It all tested out to be Grundy.
Oh, huh.
And Alan says that's the best there is. Alan Gentry told me. He was over there getting a soil test one time. And that's about all I know about it, really.
So the cabin, you had sold that property to somebody else, and there was a barn covering it. Is that correct? Or how did that?
It was a house covering
Well, it was a house built all the way
all
around.
the way around.
There's a porch here, and there's a room here, and a kitchen and everything back here in the back, and a well back there, and
Was that built around the original cabin, or was that the cabin?
it was built all the way around it. The
Okay.
whole cabin was inside covered up
That was on the Winchester or on the Rich?
on the ridge.
On the Rich cabin,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know nothing about this out here. I never did see it. It was all gone when I got there and knew about it. My dad always told me that Louis Moffett told him that Louis said that his dad was born over here, and he's the one that had this property down there. Well, you know where the school is here at Marble. It's right off, just as the road bends and goes up around the school. And here's the church right here.
Uh-huh.
That road goes right straight through there. There used to be a great big 2-story house there. A great big nice house with a lot of that woodwork on it and everything all around. Now, that's where Louis was born. But Louis' dad was born out here. And that's how Moffat's was always around here a lot, you know, because they was born here and raised and everything. And Louis's dad was born over here, and Louis was born down here, and Land Louis would be way over 100 years old now. So that was back during the Mormon time too. But I don't know who owned it then. I go back to the Winchesters as far as I go.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know nothing about the Moffat. Whether it would have been on there or not. Whether he even owned it or what he was doing. But
The Charles Rich cabin is the only known structure left from the Far West days.
Is that right?
It's the only one left. Yeah. Now, so the house, someone bought the house, and they tore the house down and found that there was a cabin inside.
Is
What-
that right? When the kids were doing all their research down there, did they discover the cabin before they did all that, or do you remember? I remember that
yeah,
history
Charles C. Rich, Mike Riggs had all that down, you know, all that
Yeah, where
history
he
he
got
knew,
all
and
that.
then he turned it all in. And
What year was that discovered? The Rich cabin.
after they did the cabin down there. It's got all of their research.
Yeah. See, this group here, the Missouri Mormon Frontier Foundation, is what we're doing some work for.
And then
I
here's
guess that was 1998.
1998. Okay, it was a 90.
No, it was still a long time ago.
Oh, that's right, it is.
So they found that because they were tearing the house down. Is that correct?
And they wanted to do research, and he knew that Charles C. Rich was from there, and they'd researched that. This group of kids, it was a group of kids that he was the
Yeah, that's the only structure that survived and left
Is that
from
right?
known structure. You know,
Known structure.
like President Walker here, he has some foundation and the old logs that were from that time period. But this is the actual
way it looked at one time.
structure that they have left from.
Is that right?
This was all good yet, and that old.
Now, there's an old well you mentioned on the property as well.
This one out here, or the
Yeah, there's an old well there, out here, about right out here, and then one right in the back of that.
So are those wells still here next to the old?
this property, Junior. Out here, where's the well on it?
I'm not sure about that out there at all. I don't know whether there was a well there or not. I don't know.
And that-
I thought there was a cellar there, maybe.
But there was a well, because earlier you mentioned a well as well.
That's what it looked like, Bart, when they first found it.
Found it there, huh? Oh, wow.
And look how good it was.
Yeah, it was protected.
That was in great shape, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know any history of any of the old wells on your property? Do those date back to Far West?
There wasn't any on this property, but I dug one right out here. But there's that one. There was one down there out here in the barn lot, and one right over here in front of the house, and one right in the back of the house. That's down at the log house. That's the only three they were there anywhere. And they're still all there, as far as I know.
And you believe that those were from that time period, from the 1830s?
Well, I would say maybe not that far back.
Oh, really? They were dug later.
No, I'd say maybe there. I don't know what there was around the house or who dug them or anything. I don't know nothing about that. But you had to have water there.
Well, yeah, makes sense.
Somebody would have dug a well somewhere.
So I would say somebody dug them way back.
You know, that time period, you mentioned your father, when he'd grade the roads, he'd hit some old structures and some old foundations. And you mentioned when you'd mow, you'd pull up some old stuff. How often did you guys pick up stuff?
Well, that would have been back in probably between back in the 30s and 40s.
1930s and
When
40s.
he was working for the township.
He'd
Yeah, he quit the township long about 1950, maybe 48, 49.
Because I
He
can't
was
even.
letting up quite a bit on it
I
then.
can't even imagine what Far West looked like with that many people living there.
Well, that would have been something,
Wouldn't
wouldn't
it?
it? With
Houses
that many.
I
and
think, if I
businesses
remember,
and
There were a lot of homes, a lot of homes being built too.
yes,
It was
and businesses too. You know, and streets. They talked about the streets in some of these.
courthouse was there.
Yeah.
It seemed like around 3,000 people.
I just
maybe.
can't imagine.
Yeah, there was 5,000 people there.
5,000.
5,000,
Okay. Okay.
so there would have been a lot of homes, a lot of foundations.
Yeah, yeah. And they
Yeah.
talked about the 4th of July celebrations and some of this stuff I read. And they would have, all the people would gather and, you know, in the common area. And my land, I can't even imagine. It's amazing.
When you were a boy growing up here, were there old structures from that time period, old cabins and barns that you remember? That maybe you guys were told to set on fire or to bulldoze, to take down?
Remember them in the county? In the area?
Oh, yeah, there was a
Township.
lot of old buildings around, but I don't know what become of them really. Were they burnt down, tore down, or
Become the thing to destroy them, I guess.
yeah, they just kind of deteriorated away, and everybody wanted to get rid of them, you know.
Yeah,
Now they want to
now
save
they want
them.
back.
Like when President Walker was a boy here and his dad was farming, you know, they had to clear a lot of the land and they set a lot of old structures on fire to clear land. And,
Sure.
you know, you could think that maybe some of those old buildings had some ties back to the old
And
days.
They probably did. Probably did. No doubt.
Like this property up here that Bart's sisters were building that house up here. It had a great big 2-story square house on it. That was a Paxton place at that time. And Penny and Paxton were together on that. And Penny's wife was a Paxton. And J.C. Penny would come out every once in a while, Mom would say, because they lived in that old house on down there kind of across from where Darlene lives. And a little further down than where that tin house is, you know, what that guy lives in. I don't know him, but a little further down the road that's where they live.
Cross
And I don't know why that all belonged to the Paxton place at that time or not, but they lived there and they worked for Paxton. And it had an old well on it there about where that tin place
Shed is.
or house or whatever it is, barn that guy lives in, that brown one sitting there. And Mom would take clothes up there and wash them out by hand there at that well. They lived down south at the house. They had to walk up there at that well to wash the clothes out.
I guess first question is, how far does your family go back in this area far west?
Well, they went back to about, well, let's see. Mom came out here from Kentucky when she was about 14.
Your dad came first? Or your dad was born here?
No, my dad came out and he was about 5 years old, I think, from Elizabethtown, Kentucky. And Mom came from Wayne County.
I say the mid 1800s, probably.
Mid
I'd
1800s.
say so.
It's kind of between Monticello and Somerset. In there. Somerset was the biggest town, I think.
So your parents were the first
my
ones here.
granddad came out and he worked out here for a year. And he worked for Lyndon Sloan's granddad up here, you know. Right south of where Floyd Burnett lived, that first house there where Orr Sloan, he that big square house there. And they lived in a little house out back. And my granddad worked here for a year to make money to go back and get the rest of the family. Then he went back in that summer and got them and brought them in up to Cameron here at the junction place out west of Cameron, there where the 2 railroads came through.
Now, growing up here, were there any stories that you heard about the Mormons? You know, anything crazy? Because after the Mormons were kicked out, people who stayed here for years would have been people who weren't in favor of them. They would have kicked them out.
It would have had stories.
Yeah, so I wonder if any stories were passed on. If you got,
Well, I've heard the folks say they'd done a lot of baptizing down in Shoal Creek. Now, I don't know if it was Mormons or other churches. They lived up around there quite a little bit in different places. And
That would have
they was
been,
around.
that would have been at Shoal Creek at Ted's place at the curve.
my folks was around the Mormons a lot up there, but never heard nothing bad about anything. Nothing like that. And then my folks, they moved different places. People moved a lot every 2 or 3 years. They lived a lot of different places, and they would get off the Marble mail route. And they was living right out here, about a mile and a quarter out that first road. Then you go right straight, be about right straight out there. Another road went back east, called that the ore place, and that's where my dad had the steam engine over there, sawing wood for my granddad, and he met my mom over there that day. My granddad liked her so well and everything, and he just lived about a half a mile south of there, over there at the Walter McNary place. And he was kind of living there with them, and so they got to going together. Got married back in 1922, and my sister was born in 24, and I was born in 34. And then they went from there then. They went clear back up here to far west, and you go about a mile and a half east over on the Charlie Walker place. And that's where they landed over there. That's where my folks was living at that time, I guess, and they had moved up there. My dad had to go to service and got back, and then they got married. He was over in France. And so they lived there when they first got married. Dad had a sawmill set down on the Crooked River, and he'd go back and forth in the Model T down there on the weekend and sold all winter. He said 60,000 board feet of lumber, and him and Granny Stewart, and had a pretty good winter, and they kept firing the steam engine all the time, and go back and forth in the Model T. Go over here on Vinegar Hill. That hill was so steep, and he couldn't get up that hill. So he'd turn around the Model T and back it up the hill to get the fuel tank above the carburetor so he could get gas in it to back it. He'd back up Vinegar Hill all the time. Then he'd get back down there, then he'd stay all week and saw lumber. And then he had a sawmill set on Shoal Creek, and he had one down here on Log Creek, and had one on Homer Crowley and on John Corbett. He finally wound up with it sitting down here at Marble when he bought that place. He said he wanted him a home, and he called his own. And so he bought that and set up down there, and that's where I was born at. Been there until I come out here.
You're probably the only one around here that remembers much of his folks talking about the Mormon history, because it seems like Charlie and Rosie always kind of mixed with everybody. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what your religion or what you had, you know. Or
they ran into them.
They just were people. They were just good people. They liked people. So
I wonder how many of the Mormons stayed here when the big
that too.
Yeah, the big, when they got ran out, there would have been some that might have chose just to stay behind.
Matter of fact, when the apostles came back to do in April 26th to do that little dedication of the temple, and they go on their missions, that was prophesied. They came and visited some of their old friends first.
Oh. Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
Because not everybody left. Not everybody could leave.
Okay.
And
I wonder how they were treated, the ones that remained.
Stayed,
because they.
Yeah, and there was a time too. I know there's a lot of people here, but you have guys like Oliver Cowdery and the Whitmers that became antagonistic towards the church heavily. So, they claim that they were driven out. So they went to Richmond, some places. But if you were done with all the persecution and didn't want to pick up and leave again, but you were still a member of the church, but you were just, I'm done. It's too much for me. Right. You would have stuck around and had your house and stuff. And
that's right.
so you'd had friends still.
Yeah, that's right.
Like in Nauvoo, same principle. Emma Smith and, a lot of them stayed back. And they were the core members of the church.
And didn't go west.
Yeah, and once the main body left, it seems like a lot of the persecution died down,
Right, yeah. I love that history.
Well, Mormons had been here a long time, and they was everywhere. All this Osage Horns, I read where the Mormons put all that out. And look how old that is.
Yeah.
And they was here probably before all these other people were here. They were ahead of them.
Did they put it out for fence rows? Is that why they planted it?
Yeah, they wanted to have their border, I guess, so they'd know what belonged to them. And they're just everywhere, all around. And everywhere there's one of them places you just about figure, well, Mormons had it at one time. Probably the reason it was there. And of course, it's supposed to have been kept trimmed, and I imagine they did, but then the other people just let it grow up.
Yeah.
And it gets out so big, it shades a lot of ground and stuff like that. And a lot of people want to push it out and get rid of it. It's whatever you want. It makes a good fence, I guess. If some of it's got wire
If you kept them trimmed back, they would make good fences, wouldn't they? They'd eventually grow in together.
Davidson boys down there I used to have some down there, and they kept it trimmed down. It wasn't about that tall. They had to work on it every year, keep it that way.
Huh.
And they were here a long time. It's kind of like I don't know when the Mormons started, whether the Indians was here too, and I don't know who kind of took their place.
Yeah.
Part of them was Mormons, I don't know.
Indians too were forced across the river. A lot of the Indians were relocated. They just kept getting relocated until they got pushed further west. But yeah, they were here, and then they were pushed even further across the river. So they were here for a little bit too.
Yeah, they would be.
But from 1836 to 1838, it's when the main body of the saints were here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then by 1838 to 1839 is when there was an exodus and they left here. And
1836, you say?
is when they started to come here.
1836.
Yeah, Joseph Smith came here in March of 1838.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of 1838, the saints were already picking up. Joseph Smith was arrested, October 31st, 1838, on President Walker's property.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, they all left. So by 1839, they were
All gone.
they all left. Yeah.
Gee, with just 3 years.
Yeah, with just 3 years to build a whole city,
Yeah.
5,000
Isn't that
people,
amazing?
and yeah.
And look how, and look, they didn't have things to work with. They have now.
No, they're. I didn't realize this till I saw a picture of it that somebody had painted. There would have been hundreds of. Let's see, I don't have the exact numbers right, but there was only. It seemed like there was only 128 houses, but there was 5,000 people.
Okay.
So a lot of people were living in tents and
Okay.
they tried to build their houses. You take that short period of time, it'd take them, a little bit of time to get their house built.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of people there that just had makeshift houses and tents and
lived with
or
their friends
one-room
or
cabins
family or
until they
something.
planned to
Well,
build
I'll be
more.
darned.
So
I don't know how they kept warm in the winter and kept everything heated and of course I guess they'd get out and cut wood and burn wood, but
And the city itself, how far out did it stretch? East and west? How far? How big was the city?
originally, I'd always heard that there was a 1 mile square
Okay,
from the
1
temple
mile.
site.
Okay, from the temple.
But I've also heard that it's 3 or 4 miles out from this
Okay.
part of the city. But you can kind of look at these maps how after you get about a mile out, they don't have a good recording of who owned the land there. So I don't know if it was just not no one had bought the farms yet or farm.
Probably not.
it had been some other roads, wasn't they, right around out through them places.
Yeah, they said they had streets in the city and
I mean,
Hotels and
It would have been about the middle of it, would it? About the
Temple
middle.
site was the center of the city square.
okay.
but they had spread so far. Caldwell County was full of members of the church. When they actually first came, a lot of them that didn't have places to sleep, they slept on the floor, out in the ground. Initially, I'd read too that as many homes they had, they were building just as many were constantly being built.
Okay.
Same time.
Yeah, there was a fast growing city, but they had spread in Davies County, all the different counties. They were far out into to DeWitt and Sheraton County, and so they didn't just stay here in Caldwell.
Yeah,
Initially, they were, and according to reports that the people who helped create Caldwell County and all the residents around it thought that the Mormons were going to stay put in Caldwell County, but the members of the church said that wasn't part of the deal.
Right.
We're up here in the north. No one's here. So we're going to spread out, and so the more they spread out, they started
More people disliked it.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Okay. They went to go vote up in Gallatin, up in Davies County, and back by then they outnumbered the native settlers but heavily. So their voting would have took control of the
Sure.
of the election.
And the local.
Yeah. So there was a big fight that took place there, and of course that's what started most of all that fire and all that
Sure.
all that violence that took place after that.
After that, well, I'll be gone.
So they had a lot of peace. Well, they had for the same members of the church up to that point, they enjoyed a good season of pure peace.
They did.
There was diaries that said they were they had no enemies and they lived in great peace. Everybody and
Right.
now that didn't last long.
Right. Right.
Junior, they also said the Mormons introduced the locust trees here.
Introduced to what?
Locust.
The locust tree.
Oh, did they?
I read something that said that the trees were a species that they introduced here that were really pretty, flowered and pretty trees.
Locust made an awful good fence too. Not as good as hedge, but they was good fences.
Huh.
Dad made some out of some locusts one time, but he kind of like, I saw he didn't have the hedge, but the hedge is all right if you don't let it get seasoned out and you can't get a steeple in it. If it gets good and hard and everything, you can't drive a steeple in it. You can pretty good if it's green, but
Grandpa Stevens had a locust tree in his backyard over at Calvo. It was a huge mammoth tree. It took over the whole backyard, and Grandma had a little garden and so forth, rock garden and so forth. But I can remember my granddad had his lawn chair, and he sat there with his feet propped up on that locust tree till the day he died. That's what he did every day. And I remember that old locust tree. I'd forgotten about that. I'll be darned.
Hey, Junior, back to your question about, you're talking about Sweet. It seemed like he was in good shape and he ran a hard life and that. Right now, when we look at us here when we're on this earth, we think it's a blessing to stay here. But if we were on the other side, we would see that we'd want to get back there quicker.
That's right.
And so sometimes you see somebody like him or even my dad, the only promise in the scriptures is 72 years old.
yeah,
And that's how old my dad lived to, was 72.
yeah,
So his work was done.
yeah.
And same thing with you, you sometimes you get some of these scoundrels out here that you say, wow, how do they prosper? Or it seemed like they're doing really good, or they got their health or a strong body.
Right.
But it doesn't always mean you're prospering just because
No,
the appearance of it
That's
means
definitely
prosper. Like
right.
you sleep well at night. My dad slept well at night.
yeah,
Some of these other guys that you're saying didn't live such a clean life or a good life, the appearance might look good, but that doesn't mean that
It was good.
they got it, that it was good or not, anything good about it. So
no.
the other thing our prophet said is his wife was telling him one day, wow, my body's I got some pain in my body. And he said, isn't it a blessing that Heavenly Father's plan is the only way we can get back to live with Him is our body's got to give out.
Get out.
Yeah,
I've never thought about
So it's really the worse your body gets, that's just getting you closer to God.
yeah,
That's right.
And we'll all get there and we'll all get to that point. So
Yeah.
like with Dad, I look at it with my dad now. I mean, my dad right now is building a home for my mom and us kids.
yeah,
And since he's there before, just like your parents are preparing a place for you.
That's right.
yeah.
Exactly.
So they're there
Yeah,
just like your parents came here to this earth and worked ahead of you. They're
Yeah.
there now working ahead of you to go back.
Everywhere we go.
Because we all lived with Heavenly Father before we came here. We wanted to be like Him and receive a body.
Yeah,
And the only way we could get back to Him was through Jesus Christ. As you guys said, you'd
Right.
accept Jesus in your life.
Right.
And you tried to keep the commandments throughout your life. And with Jesus, when we make a mistake, we're able to repent
We can't.
and come closer to Him. And so we're here to get a family, and then we're going to die, and we're going to be with our family again.
Right. That's right. Oh my.
And that's our
yeah. That makes it sound good.
It's a
yeah.
good way to look at it.
Yeah, we lived with Heavenly Father before we got here. We came here to get a family, and we returned back to
That's
Heavenly
who we
Father
go
with a
back to.
family.
That's who we go back to.
So sometimes some of these guys you see that didn't have much of a family life, they're going to miss out like my dad.
Mhm.
My dad never made a lot of money, but he's got 50 grandkids.
Right. I was going to ask.
Yeah, 12 kids and 50 grandkids. So just think about what he's preparing for all of them there.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So-
oh my.
So Junior, the closer you get in age, where just like today, you had some tender feelings.
Mhm.
You had tender feelings of those things that were close to in your life.
That's right.
Your
Yeah.
family,
That's right.
your bulldozer, the things you worked hard for, your wife, you know, and it won't be long.
That's right.
You'll be there. And the best thing about that is what I know about my dad right now. He's got a strong, healthy body.
That's right. And no aches nor pains. Does
No
it?
aches or pains, strong body.
No. That's right.
So every day you're fulfilling God's plan that as your body gives out, you know, we can't die unless we have an accident young and healthy.
That's right. That's
That
right.
our body has to start weakening to where it finally dies and we get to
Mhm.
live back with Him.
That's right. That's a good way to look at it.
So,
My. That's right.
so just keep pushing as long as you can, Junior, and one day it'll be time to go and you'll be met with all the people that love you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And have no regrets.
Have no regrets.
No.
No regrets.
That's what's beautiful about it is he has no regrets that I can have ever heard him regretting. I've
Uh-huh.
never heard him say that. So